Bob, do you know how to get that laptop up? Yay. Basically, just,
That's his first test.
first test.
How do you open a laptop?
I'm gonna say, if he touched that button and it didn't come up, I don't know what else to do.
Shades of gray. They were brown. You know what?
That's for the candidates for the next. Oh, that's right, I'll be out of town, sorry.
I got your candidate next week. 4 or 5.
Okay. Come? Yes. Okay.
This is Jerry Newsom. Free candidate. Make an entry. Folks, I'm not going to take a long time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming back. Again, we are here because we are having presentations by our candidates for the Vice President of Academic Affairs. And we'll have a presentation, a signed topic, and then after that we'll go into a more formal session. And in case I forget to say afterwards, we don't have a formal feedback mechanism. If you have comments, observations to offer to the committee, please do that by email directly to Dr. Deborah Wright through the campus email, and she'll get those to the committee. And our candidate is Dr. Richard Flemming. I'm just going to turn this over to you.
Thank you. Thanks. If there are any questions, I'd like to go by Rich, so please call me Rich. Anyway, I'm going to have to stand here and kind of work, so kind of bear with me since I'm going to have to turn and look at you. Well, good afternoon. I am Rich Flemming, and as you said, I'm one of the candidates for your Vice President of Academic Affairs position here at Thomas Nelson. And I was asked to give a presentation. Now, I know that that's a busy slide. I don't know how many of you have seen the questions, so I'm just going to pause a few moments for you to take this all in. Bulleted out 3 questions. And those questions are, what innovations would you suggest the college consider to address that question? How would you bolster the success of these strategies? And then what process would you use to gain campus and partner buy-in? So those are the 3 things that I'm going to use to address my presentation. Well, first off, let me talk a little bit about your enrollment per se. This came off the BCCCS website, so if it's not accurate, it's them. But anyway, you can kind of see, and I know it may be hard to see in the background, but the red bar is your annual head count, blue bar is your FTE, and the lighter colored bar is called head count. So you can see over about a 5-year period, you've had a few dips, and you're now kind of on that upward climb again. If you look at just your annual head count, if you look at your annual FTE, people have asked me to address. Now, the one thing I do want to point out is throughout this presentation, some of the things that were included in the topical question have also been included in some of my suggestions because they're successful, they're here to be successful, and it's important that we review what you're currently doing so that we can understand how to build on some of the ideas that I think will help you continue to be successful. So let me address the first part of the question, and that's the question of innovations and strategies. And as requested, I want to deal with this from two perspectives. One of these has to do with enrollment, the other has to do with retention. So, some of the innovations and strategies for enrollment. I think it's important that you take a look at programs, programmatically, and that you consider and look at those programs that may have low enrollments. And again, I pulled some information off the website, and there are some, because the only way that you're going to be able to consider how you want to change it, expand it, or close it is by doing that analysis. The other thing is to analyze your schedule, and that's to look for trends in courses, times, enrollments. I think it's important that you ensure that you look at your schedule from a context of, are we in 1 year offering the courses that a student needs to complete their certificate? Are we in 2 years offering the courses that a student needs to complete their degree? And so it's important that we analyze to ensure that we are offering courses. And particularly if there's some courses that may be light in enrollment, that we only look at that, and it may only be a 1 semester in the butt. What's important is that we may look at perhaps a rolling schedule. And a rolling schedule would be is where you develop a 2-year schedule that says we're going to offer these courses. You can't go ahead and start putting times and even rooms for it, because that way a student could look at that schedule on the website perhaps, know they're in a certain degree of certificate, and know that if they miss a course in the fall, they may have a chance to take it in spring, or if they miss it in the fall, they may not be able to get it to another fall. And this helps students with some of their schedule. You need to continue to innovate with some of your formats. And as I mentioned, you're doing some things like Saturday classes, you're certainly doing things like 8-week classes, but there's a lot of other things. You can continue to expand your distance education. You've got a lot of people here, military adults, can't come to class. And so by expanding and offering distance ed, that may help them. But distance ed is not an only source. It should be another type of modality that we use. And so you try to offer students as many different types of technique or types of options as possible. Certainly you can consider going to a Friday evening, all day Saturday, and Sunday afternoon format. This way a student could possibly get up to 16 hours in 1 weekend, but then you have to take maybe a weekend or 2 off to give the student time to process, to do material, and then you come back. Because if you do it every week, that doesn't give the student somehow some ability to integrate the learning. But that's still something that's being done, particularly with adults. Certainly your formats, there are other options. You're doing 8 week, you could do 4 weeks, an intensive time. There's a lot of different options you can address. Certainly expanding afternoon offerings, because again, many times we only schedule in the morning and the evening. There may be a group in the afternoon. Intermester, you take a look at something between spring and summer, or between summer and fall. Those sometimes, and that would have to be maybe a 5-night a week for so many week type format to work through. Telecourses, independent study. Flip-flop is not original to me. It's something that I've seen and I really like it, because a lot of times you have people in public services like firemen, policemen. Okay, they're working schedules, and their schedules have a tendency to change, or they're only working 1 day and then they may be off for 2 or 3 days. And then a flip-flop is you offer the same class on a Monday and let's say Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, then you offer the same class Tuesday, Thursday, and this allows the students to integrate their shift, and even if their shift changes, then they can still come on another day. And certainly hybrids, and this would be an integration of not only could be distance ed, it could be other types of technology, perhaps with some in class. that we take a look at the forums that we may want to conduct with some of our major businesses like healthcare, advanced technology, trades, services, because remember the question, there's an increasing demand for healthcare offerings and in some of the traditional trades and services and in advanced technology. And so we may have to sit down and talk to them to find out what courses do you need, how do you want them done, when can we do them, where can we do them to affect your students. You may want to look at programs for the military, you're certainly doing this, but there's always options to look at. And now with so many people, you've got orders are being deployed in 2 weeks, that affects how a student does, or what they do and how are they going to complete. Seniors, and seniors means senior citizens in that respect, not senior students, but senior citizens. Because again, you may have a large group that can be served, and you offer where they can, in some cases, they can get credit courses for free, they can audit classes, and so that may be another group to appeal to, because a lot of those people, including a lot of us, don't want to stop learning just because they may have retired. And certainly, the president may have this, and that's a college-level advisory council, major businesses, healthcare service groups, to get input into the college as a whole. Plus, you also have your advisory committees at the program level, and if you do the forums, you're getting as much input. So you're trying to get input from as many areas as you possibly can. Retention. And I know that this is an issue with the state. It's certainly an issue with the president. You've got a QEP, Quality Enhancement Plan, that you have to put together as part of your SACS accreditation. And of course, you're creating these communities of learning. And that's a really good way to get students involved, because that includes placement guidelines, it includes a student success course. The whole thing is it becomes somewhat more focused and intensive in ensuring that the student is constantly being advised, discussed, talked to, so that they're kept up with what's going on and what their progress is. You've got the new TRIO grant. That's a great way of being able to serve at-risk students. And so you certainly don't want to stop. You certainly want to continue to expand those. A lot of times we don't know why students quit coming. They just don't show up, and we don't worry about it. But a stop out, of course, is a student who, for some reason, just quits, but it doesn't mean they don't intend to come back. Life may change, they have to stop out. But if a student quits coming, and you look at your retention, and you've got a 50% fall to spring, let's say, or fall to spring, where are the other 50%? Or if you look at your fall to fall, where are those numbers? And so you try to find out where they are, because you may find out that of the 50% who didn't come back, 40% of them achieved their academic goal. They may only have taken 1 or 2 courses, but if we don't know, it's hard for us to go back to the state and show that to the state. You certainly need to be sure that the services are being offered at all times for students. And that includes morning, afternoon, evening, weekends, and your president says that this is something that's being looked at or being done right now. But you may also want to take a look at intrusive advising. This means actively taking part in advising the student, basically making sure that everyone's involved in it. You're almost telling the student, here's what you should be doing. Now, you also recognize that students are adult learners, and they have some part of their own responsibility. But there are certain students, who we can identify who may need something differently, who may need to have more advice or more hand-holding, even though they may be an adult. You have procedures for probationary, suspended students if they want to come back. You may want to put requirements on them that they have to take certain developmental courses, so they can only take this course, they can't drop. There can be a lot of different things that can be done to support that. So, that includes strategies and innovation. The other part of the question is how you bolster success. And some of this could be to take your innovations and strategies to the strategic plan. This would be not only the college's strategic plan, which is tied into Dateline 2009, but you need to tie those in there, because oftentimes, particularly when SACs come in, they're going to say, show me where you're tying this to your money. Because your money tells me how much your commitment is to that. And so we have to look at these things on a cost analysis for each of the strategies. What's it going to cost us? What's it going to mean? What's important to us? What may have the greatest chance of success, and how are we going to then incorporate that into our budget? Certainly the effectiveness of every strategy. What's working, what's not. Because again, if it's not working, you may want to change it. You may want to eliminate it. I think it's important that you continuously environmentally scan, and by that I mean you're constantly in touch with your business community, with your student community. You're constantly finding out what's happening, what's new, what's going on. What are the trends that we see developing, so that we can begin to prepare perhaps, or be aggressive in going out on our own, or certainly when a company comes to us and says, we need welding, we may be prepared for that. Tracking enrollments, course, time, day, format. I think it's real important that when we build schedules, that we use history. If we've always offered a class at 10 o'clock and it's always canceled, then why keep doing it? Which classes have been successful, which times? Okay, what have the enrollments been? Because again, part of it is using some of that data so that you can find out which times seem to work best. Certainly analyzing the data, tracking, evaluation, scanning, creating links with economic and workforce development groups. Okay. This is important. A lot of emphasis on workforce development. And to me, economic development drives workforce development. And what I mean by that is the communities that we serve have, hopefully, some economic development ideas, strategies where they want to take their community. And then we need to be involved where they come in and say, here's what we're going to do, here's the types of businesses we're going to try to recruit. Then you say, fine, here's how I can help you and support you in that. Because the first thing most companies talk about or ask about when they're coming in is, am I going to have a trained workforce? And if I don't, how am I going to get them trained? And so that's why I think it's important that we have that tie-in, because again, we know what they're doing. And certainly, we have to go, not only we have to go within ourselves, and that's to educate ourselves, to talk among ourselves, to see the importance of all of this, to see the importance of retention, to see the importance of workforce development. All of these things tie together. And so we need to look within ourselves and educate ourselves. Plus we need to educate our partners. Because no, we may not be able to support a partner's request for some reason. Or they don't understand it takes 9 months to get a program approved. Because their idea is, well, why aren't you doing it tomorrow? And so we have to sometimes even educate our partners as well too. And so we have to get buy-in from them. Okay, campus and partner buy-in. That was the last part of it, is how do we get buy-in? Well, obviously get faculty involved in all the decisions, programs, courses, times, formats, involve the staff who are involve certainly student services in all the decisions, because so much of the student services we provide are the keys to retention. Certainly you could consider creating task forces and committees as we need them to maybe address specialized certain areas. Set up a communication system so that people know what's happening. It's always a hard problem among all of us, no matter if we may be on the same campus of how's it flowing down, but likewise in turn, how's it flowing up? And so we need to find a system that works so that we can have that, so that you're getting the information you need, that you want, and likewise in turn, we're getting the information that we need as we move up, whether it be through the deans, vice president, to the president, so that we know what's happening and what's going on. Certainly training. It's important that whenever we're going to do new types of technology or new types of formats, we may need to provide training to faculty. If you're going to have someone doing distance ed, you need to train them in how to do Blackboard, WebCT. You need to teach them in how to develop courses, because if you start developing courses in alternative formats, SACS is going to come in and say, I don't care how you did it. I want you to show me that that student learned and walked away with exactly the same level of knowledge and the same background that they did sitting in a lecture class. That's hard to do, but that's what we have to do. And certainly ensure that academics and student services work together. There's not an us them, there's a we. And that we is the institution, and we always have to keep asking what's best for the student, and then what's best for the institution. So those are questions we have to constantly keep asking ourselves. certainly come to and keep them in continuous and regular information with them. They need to know what we're doing. You do your annual report to the community. We may find other ways to keep them informed. State personally, part of that refers to myself, but I also think it involves a lot of people, because the more we're involved in the community, the more input we get, the more feedback we get, the more contacts we make, so that if we need something, somebody may know somebody who knows somebody that we can go to. And there's nothing wrong with going to somebody and saying, if you want us to start this program, here's what we need from you. And if you find the right person, that person may then go out and find other people to contribute. And certainly, we need to be sure that we respond to our partners in a timely fashion. Now, that means we may have to say, okay, we agree, we need this program. It's a long, lengthy process. That may mean what we do is we set up a non-credit program for them to get them started while we're working on the other part of it. The key thing is they want to be taken care of. Because the minute you turn a partner away, or they have a bad experience, it's just like everything. One bad experience leads to 10 other people knowing about it. So you never want that to happen. So, I was asked what innovations would I suggest. I gave you those. How would I bolster the success? I think I included that. And then what process would I use to gain partner buy-in? So, in closing, let me refer to your value statement. And your value statement says, Thomas Nelson Community College aspires to 7 fundamental values in all of its endeavors. They provide the guiding principles which determine how we identify and respond to the needs of our communities. So in this presentation, I've tried to present my ideas, and I've included some of yours which seem to have indicated are working. I believe the ideas that I presented reflect and support your values. I think they will promote opportunities. I think they will serve the learner and the community as well, and help ensure that we reach our goal of excellence. Community colleges are the community's college, I like. And as such, we are communities much. We have to provide those educational opportunities which our community stakeholders want and need. By continuing to grow and prosper, the institution can meet these needs and wants. Our students depend on us, and as we seek ways to increase enrollment and improve retention, we always have to strive to be innovative, to ensure the success of our ideas, and develop partnerships within our campus and our communities. And so with that, I will say thank you. It's been my pleasure to present this to you. And what do we do now?
You want to take questions if there are any, and if not, let's move up to the lectern, and then we'll have some formal questions.
Do I have to move to the lecture?
Well, we're going to be up here, so here.
All right. So we're best. I will move to the lecture.
Otherwise, we look like the high court.
Well,
First of all, were there any questions from Dr. Fleming's presentation? Yes, John.
What is your general philosophy or approach to planning, function planning in community college?
okay. And if you could introduce yourself and tell me who you are, that will help me.
I'm John Davis. I'm the director of IR and strategic planning.
Gee, what a good question, John. Planning is very important, obviously, and as I mentioned in the presentation, so much of what we do has to tie into the plan. We've got the state with their, 8 or 9 objectives, I can't remember the number. Obviously, the colleges there are expected to develop accordingly. Instruction becomes a mechanism to support those, to develop our own goals and strategies from that. I believe that we need to tie in what we do to the budget with our strategic planning and initiatives. And my background, I've had a lot of experience. We've always tried to tie budgets to the plan itself. So it's very important to us. It's something not only that the state requires, SAC certainly requires it. My role would be to work with you for the data that you have and can provide us, to certainly look at that from the institutional effectiveness level, which is that broader overarching picture of what we're doing as an institution as opposed to what we're doing at the course or program level. So personally, I think it's important. I feel comfortable with it. I think it's something we have to tie in with budgetary issues and concerns. Because like I say, most accrediting groups say, you didn't show me that you cared about it because you didn't make a commitment to it. You just put it on paper. Thank you, Jim.
Great. Well, once again, Dr. Flemming, welcome. And ladies and gentlemen in the audience, thank you for being here today, especially my faculty colleagues. I'm Tom Long, Professor of English and President of the Faculty Senate. So I have two questions for you relevant to faculty issues. First of all, through the elected Faculty Senate, faculty at Thomas Nelson Community College have a long tradition of active engagement in shared collegial governance and also in strategic partnerships with all stakeholders of the college, both internal and external stakeholders. Describe for us your philosophy of shared collegial governance and your experience with shared collegial governance.
Okay. First off, I've worked with faculty associations, faculty senates, whatever they may be. I've always been in non-union states, so all my experience is in non-union areas. My feeling is, when I was the vice president, I always talked with my faculty association president and said, look, I will come to your meetings, or any meeting, whether it be classified or whatever. I will come if you want me. If you have an issue or concern and you want me there, you let me know and I'll be there. But I always try to meet periodically, as frequently as the association president wanted to meet with me, to talk about issues or concerns that were raised during the meetings, so that they could get the information they needed to go back to the particular group or concerns. I've learned, that shared governance means lots of things to different people, and sometimes it's how do we define shared governance. But I've certainly learned now, more so, about this process to product. And what I mean is this, is shared governance means that I need to probably be more involved or actively involved with, letting you know what my thoughts or feelings are, like, hey, we may need to change this policy, we may need to change this procedure. Give me some feedback. I may start it off and say, here's kind of what I think, share with me. But certainly, it needs to be a joint relationship where you have all the budgetary information that you need. There shouldn't be a closed budget. There shouldn't be any information that I have that I can't share, though there will sometimes be. And that may be the time that I say, I can't share that right now. But certainly I think free and open information flow, free and involvement in the budgets, certainly involvement through the committee structure. Again, I haven't seen a list. I couldn't find a list of all the various committees that you may have, but certainly the committee structure, to whomever they report, certainly provides that feedback and that input. So I would want to sit down with you and others to make sure that we're on the same page of how do we want to do things, how do we like to do things, how do you want information, how much information do you want? Because when we start getting into those areas, not just with faculty, but all people, we're talking about your culture. And your culture is essentially who you are as an organization. And I've learned that culture is important. And we need to respect the culture, and I need to know the culture and understand the culture, because that puts things in context to me. But I certainly would want to sit down with you and work out how we wanted to communicate. How much do you want? If you want to hold, a monthly informal session, that's fine. If you want to hold a brown bag once a month or something, that's fine. I just don't know, quite honestly, at this point, until I asked you, how much do you want and how active do you want me to be involved in it? But I have respected opinions. I've made mistakes, no question about that, in some cases. Not because I've ever not respected the shared governance, but sometimes I acted in what I thought was, my job, and some people said, no, it's not. So that's why I've really gotten more involved in process as opposed to product. It's easy to dictate product, but it's not necessarily buy-in. And so I really, have realized that the process we get to the product is the important thing, because that's where people get to participate, get involved, and get to share what they want.
Thank you. Second question. Despite constraints on resources and other challenges, the college's faculty has earned a remarkable 95% approval rating in a survey of 1,800 student respondents conducted last December. As an administrative leader, what attitudes, habits, and practices of yours have you found to be conducive of faculty morale?
Well, first off, I want to congratulate you on the 95% rating. I think that that's great, and the fact that you asked the students is even more so. So I think you need to be commended on that. When a new person comes in, and particularly with this time now where you're getting a whole bunch of new VPs and a new provost, and you're opening a new campus, the president's going to have a whole new leadership team. And so we're going to be having to work ourselves and learning how to work as a team, to be a team, and how we want to work together. I need to learn how the president wants to work. I need to learn how the other counterparts need to work. But what happens is trust is learned over time. And it doesn't mean that when I come in, you're going to necessarily trust me, because actions, as they say, speak louder than words. And sometimes actions shout at you, and sometimes they're yelling at you. But I certainly think that over time, as I got to know you, because one of the first things I would do, and I've tried to make this a practice, is to go and sit down with everybody in their office and have a discussion. You only have one name to learn. I've got, hundreds to learn, not only for faculty, but everyone in the institution. So I want to take some time with you. Just informal, you may want to ask more questions of me, vice versa. But what I'm looking at is, what are your concerns, what are your issues, what are your challenges, what are your opportunities, how do you want me to work with you, what would you like from me, how can I help you be a better instructor? And so over time, and as trust is built, then when I come in and we talk about budgets, and we have our list of objectives, and the way I like to do it is it goes from faculty through the chairs to the deans, up to me, and then I do my part, and then we share that. Then over time, you're going to know that if I couldn't get what you wanted, then it's not because I didn't try. Because I may have tried, but I also have to look at, and this is where you walk that knife edge, I will be an advocate for the faculty, but I also have to look at the institution as a whole, and those students as a whole. And that's where you get that fine line. Because I may have to, at some point in time, compromise on something budgetary, because it may be for the greater good of the institution. But if I come back and say, here's what I did, then you need to know, okay, we can respect that and accept that. So I think it's as we get to know each other, as we get to work together, as we get to have fun together, I would try to make it a point to, and it may be, take a period of time, because again, we're dealing with large numbers of people, to try and come and sit in, if you would allow me. Just one of your classes, just to see. I'm not there to evaluate you, I just kind of like to know who you are, and sometimes you can learn a lot. So again, if you permit me, I would do that. But I would spend a lot of time wanting to visit with you, find out what you like and how we do it. And then over time, as you saw who I was, I think that trust would come, that morale would come, that support would come, because you have to know that I am going to support you. And so that would be, in large part, how I think we can contribute to morale. And that, the other part of it too, is I like to know if things occur. Your annual report, you talked about some of the things that faculty did. Those were just a few of the examples. So when I need to know about something, because if I know about something, then I'll give you recognition. And it may be we do something publicly, it may be I just come by and say, you know, God, it's really great you did this. And so some of it's just informal. Because sometimes it's just that pat on the back and you did a good job. But I have to know about it. And so there's a real important information flow up. But sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to say anything to Rich, you know, because he'll think I'm bragging. No, I don't think it's that way. So we have to get to know each other and work with each other, because you're going to be in a transition period, just like the whole college is going to be in a transition period.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, it's my turn. Again, I'm Michael Bruno. I'm one of the 2 elected middle manager representatives for the most recently organized group on campus. And I also have 2 questions. First is, please address how you would foster and reinforce a culture of collaboration across the college through your own efforts and those of your team, addressing working with student affairs and non-credit workforce development.
Okay, I think I remembered all of it. Well, I have what I call the 3 C's, and that's cooperation, collaboration, and communication. And I'm known for being a collaborator. Part you talked about with my team, certainly I have to learn how to work with my deans, because we would be a new group. I have to learn with the new VPs. And so I'm going to be having to learn how to work with a lot of groups. And I've learned over the years that if you just dig your heels in and you're recalcitrant and you just say, no, I want this, it never works. And so we try to find ways, me, student services, whoever it is, try to find ways where we can work together better, as long as we keep asking ourselves, how's it going to help the student, how's it going to help the institution? Because if you don't collaborate, it's just never going to work. And sometimes that's where you get into compromises, or, you know, okay, yeah, I'd like to do this, you'd like to do this, we try to work it out, and we try to figure out how we can both do it together. I think it involves, like I mentioned, with partner buy-in. If we're dealing outside the college, how can we find ways to help you and assist you and work with you? And so, again, it's how do we want to work together, how would we like to do it? But I've always been known for collaborating, for finding ways to try to do things, whether it be getting funding for a program, or getting equipment, or getting positions, whatever it happens to be. And so again, we would work together to build that, and over time, I think you would find out, and my other peers would find out that, okay, Rich is willing to work with us, because that's the key thing. Are you willing to work with us?
Okay, do you have any specifics that you would tailor your philosophy to in terms of working as the academic leader with student affairs and non-credit, which is under workforce development?
Well, I spent 12 years in non-credit operations as the Dean of Continuing Education. So I fully understand non-credit and its role in the college. And there is a unique function that we can serve, because it could be, you know, that's our quick response type function. It could be it's where we just offer stuff because the general community wants it. So I fully understand non-credit. I know it's also not funded. And when we were at lunch, one of my questions was, so how do you price it? How do you know you're making money? Because some of those areas, customized contract training, non-credit areas, perform our auxiliary functions or revenue generators. So we need to continue that and find how that works. With student services, you know, I've always believed in working with, you know, my counterpart. In 4 years in New Mexico, the Vice President of Student Services and I, we were good friends, we're still good friends. In 4 years, we never disagreed with each other. We'd sit down, we'd talk about things, and we'd walk out of the room agreeing. In fact, when I first got there, she said, I don't know why I'm doing all these things, because those should be instruction. So we sat down and worked out the division, because she was in charge of instructional disciplinary issues. And she said, no, I shouldn't be in charge of that. And I said, well, I agree. So we worked it out. And the reason I say that, like I talked earlier, is there has to be a relationship, because student services meets them, greets them, helps them get enrolled, helps them get financial aid, advises them, counsels them, places them. They come to us. And then we still have to provide all those ancillary services to them. And so I think that we need to make sure that academic areas understand student services and vice versa. What are our problems? What are our issues? I'd like to try something new where, we have academic services sitting on, like individual meetings perhaps, or even in, my group of deans with each other. Certainly at enrollment time when you're discussing class schedule and canceling student services. So there has to be a working relationship with each other, because if they don't get them in the door, we don't have anybody to teach. And if we don't retain them, then we're going to have more problems. And so both groups working together to get them in and also then help with that retention. So I don't see it as being adversarial thing.
Thank you very much. That was a follow-up. The second question I have, the growth of the second campus and the distance learning creates a demand for provision to these students of a wide variety of instructional and other services that are mostly out in Hampton. What are some of your ideas about assuring that the second campus students and the distance learning students have the same rich experience that the Hampton students do?
Well, they have to. And I'm not quite sure what the answer is. I think that, because when I met with your president, we had some discussions, and he's told me that, there's a lot of things that have to be worked out. Okay. He said, and I, said earlier that, like all the academic features, functions will be under the vice president. The provost is in charge of the campus, and that's where we establish those working relationships. Likewise, in turn, I'm sure that there's the same expectation for student services. Because oftentimes at campuses, and I've worked in multi-campus, in fact, I've worked in one area where there were 4 campuses, and it was 150 miles from one campus to another. And so it's very difficult when you have 4 campuses, and we had 6 centers to provide student services. Each of the campuses had pretty much their own student services. They had counselors, they had people who could help with enrollment and so on, because we didn't want to tell the student, no, you got to go down the street. Okay? Because, it's not that far, but it's far enough. And so I think it's going to have to be worked out. And there are some things you can do, some things virtually. You can do enrollments, but you still need that personal contact of, okay, you've been placed, let me advise you. Let me help you get your FAFSA filled out and your other types of financial aid. Because if you've ever looked at a FAFSA form, good luck. I mean, you can't just say, here, go out and fill it out. So I'm sure that there will have to be something worked out. But do they need the services? Absolutely. Because if they feel that they're not getting what they need, they can go someplace else. So that's something I think that's going to have to be worked out and evolved. But my philosophy would be is, yes, they have to have services. It may not be, everything in the length of time. It may be worked out. There may be certain times that certain things occur. I don't know. But certainly they have to have them. I guess that's my answer. But then how we work that out is something I'm sure we're going to have to evolve as you get the new provost and the other new vice presidents.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Flemming. Again, my name is Jerry Newsom, and I am representative of the College Support Staff Association. You did address in your presentation 2 of my questions, and I will still ask them.
Okay.
To expound on them. In what capacity would the faculty be involved in the development process of increasing enrollment?
What would the faculty be involved in increasing enrollment? It's a good question. I think in some cases it's what I talked about with being involved in the community, being involved. Because I certainly think that the more that we're out there, the more contacts we make. Certainly being willing to participate in working with the high schools, certainly visiting or going, perhaps being available during the times that students are here registering, so that if the student has a question, they can come in and get that. I think your president said that there's like 1 week that's devoted to our time when faculty are available. So certainly that's one way of helping enrollment. Faculty in large part, I think, may play a greater role in the retention. Okay, in retention, like I said, it's cheaper to retain than recruit. So that's, I think, where the important part comes in, because that's how we retain them. But there are some people who would be reluctant to ever leave the campus. I think in certainly vocational areas, I think it's important that people stay current in their areas, that they know who the employers are, that they're working with co-op, that they're working some with tech prep, that they have some of that information. I've got some of my ideas. I'd probably like to find out, how do other people think they have a role? I think faculty have a role. It's just to what extent. What I feel may be different, because when I was a vocational instructor, I felt I had an active commitment to enrollment instead of just, waiting for students to come. But mostly what I did was once the students came in or I helped them, my role became more of helping them get through the program, retaining them, getting them through the course. So I kind of like to see faculty emphasizing more of the retention, but I don't think that they're totally exempt from the enrollment part. It just may be we have to work out some of the strategies and how they're involved in it. And part of that may be with some of the evolving strategies you've got that may be going on now that I'm not aware of. But brief answer, yes, there's a function.
Thank you.
How much? I may have a different feeling. I kind of want to find out what other folks felt too, because I think it should be active.
Thank you. The second question is, do you feel the support staff could also serve in some capacity in the development process?
Development
Of increasing enrollment?
Oh, sure. Everybody at the college should have a commitment to increasing enrollment and improving retention. I think that should be everybody's role, no matter who it is. Oftentimes, the support staff are usually oftentimes the first ones students talk to, and sometimes they may be the only ones the students talk to. I always believe that support staff are as equally important as anyone. I've always believed in professional development. Because where I was, there was no money for professional development, or support staff professional development. They were having bake sales essentially to raise money, and we put money in the budget for professional development because support staff are often the group we leave out of that function. We think we're going to train faculty, and we're going to train administrators and professionals, but everybody needs to be developed and trained. So yeah, everybody has a role in it. There's no question about that. Everyone's involved in it. Oftentimes, you're the one the student finds first. And so the more that you're trained, the more that you know, the more that you have an understanding, and that's why everybody needs to have kind of the same information, the better you're going to be able to serve the student, which again can help enrollment and retention.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, we're at the end of our formal questions. Let me ask if you have anything you'd like to ask of us or any final statements you'd like to make.
Well, are there any other questions that may have come up during the course of this process? And if you are reluctant to talk openly, then I'll hopefully can have a few minutes to visit with you, so I'll be glad to talk with you. Some people have said, why do you want to come to Thomas Nelson? I think that's a good question. Actually, I was here in 1969 through 71. I was assigned to Langley. My daughter was born at Langley. And I loved this area when I was here. And it's changed a little bit, obviously. When I lived here, I told somebody if the city stopped at Hilton Village, Oyster Point was a 2-lane country road with a dairy, and that's where I lived. And the site that I worked at was on Jefferson, and it's now been turned over to the school district, and it's now a bus depot and repair facility. Whereas at one time there used to be 28 nuclear-headed missiles out there, which most people didn't know about. So I like this area, but when I saw the position was available, so that was one part. My wife's also in education. She's also in higher ed. So we'd like to have a place for her to come back where she can have a chance to rebuild her career, because she's kind of put that on the back burner for a couple of years while we were living in a rural community and she couldn't work, start her own business. Other amenities, living in an urban area, we've lived in rural areas, and rural means rural, okay? 22,000 square miles is rural. 3.5-hour drive to the airport is rural. So being back into an urban area, I'm a history buff, love history, so it'd be great for me. My wife, certainly, other amenities. Professionally, which is what you really care about. Professionally, I wanted to come to an institution that is perhaps in that, going through that change process, and when I saw what was going on, I figured there was some change occurring, which was talked about. People who I know have told me about you as an institution, and they've spoken well. They've spoken well of your president. And it looked to me like, with the new campus going on, I have multi-campus experience. And I felt that that would be something that I could come in and blend into, because I may be able to bring something to that, like student services and how important is it, how important is academics. Particularly in an institution that wants to respond to its community, that wants to respond to its students, that's progressive, that's forward-thinking. Is an institution that fits with my values and my vision of an institution. And so that was why I decided to apply to come here. I've done this for 28 years. I've been through all levels. I did resign my last position. It was not a good fit for me. It was not the right place for me because of that difference in vision and where we wanted to go. And so I just resigned, because it was just not going to work for me and it wasn't working for them. But in 28 years, or during that time, I never thought of doing anything else but. So I intend to continue in community colleges for as long as I can keep working, because it's what I love, it's what I want to do, and it's how we see how we affect students. And the best example I can give is personally, and I'll start crying, so I'll tell you now ahead of time. My daughter, 34 years old, beautiful 5-year-old son, my grandson, got divorced 2.5 years ago. Called and said, "Dad, I'm going back to Texas because I've decided I'm going back to school." And I said, "That's a really good decision." Unfortunately, she then had to say, "Gee, you're right, I wish I hadn't spent all that time earlier, messing with my grades." And I said, "Don't worry about it, focus on what you got now." So she started in San Antonio. She had health care, or she had child care, which helped her. She had her financial aid, she had Pell, she had student loans. And on May the 6th, my daughter graduated from community college with a degree in graphic art and design. Now, I was sitting in the audience crying instead of sitting on the stage crying, because I could openly cry this time. But when I saw not only my daughter, but 250 other people walking across the stage, I turned to my wife and said, "I miss this so much. This is why I want to keep doing it." My wife knows that. It's because I realized that that community college where she went had impacted and been able to help those students succeed in their journey for whatever that was they wanted to achieve. That's why we come to work every day. That's why we do what we do. Because that's what we care about. And that's what I care about. And I always keep that in my mind. Now, particularly with my daughter, I keep that in my mind of, that's somebody else's daughter, that's somebody else's son, and how can we help them, and how can I help them achieve that dream? And so that's why I want to be in an institution who feels that way. So, I think that's about all I will say, unless anybody else has other questions, other than a Kleenex. I appreciate you coming today. Thanks.
Sit, Ron.
the executive board
Okay. 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 Yeah. Okay.